It's time. My phone says it's time. That's not what
Well,
the
if
alarm
the
is
phone says so.
If the phone says it, then clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all know who's really in charge around here, director. So.
Yeah, definitely the phone. I don't know how to get where I'm going. I just do what the phone tells me to do.
Oh God, no. Yeah.
Like, directions? No.
Especially
Street
not
names?
in most
Who
of the
cares?
states. Like in Salt Lake City, I'll teach you like 3 rules and you'll be able to get around anywhere. But like any other state, like you got to be lost for about 4 hours before you get to where you're going. So
even if I know the exact location of where I'm going, I'm still going to rely on the phone to tell me the fastest way.
Oh sure, yeah, absolutely. We're not savages.
No. I don't understand how people lived and drove without phones. And I know there's going to be some form of like maps. Okay, but then did you just pull over to look at the giant map, or did you like look at it while driving and then you're going to criticize people for texting? Like, fuck you.
Right. Signs on the road mostly, I think. Like Highway X going here, etc.
I mean, sometimes, but sometimes it isn't enough. So
yeah.
It's definitely easier with GPS. There's a reason why that it took over the way it did, right? It wasn't just a small convenience. It was pretty big. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a different
podcast.
Which one are we doing today? Just kidding. So
the one I wish I had figured out a grayscale filter for us, but don't.
Yeah.
A grayscale here, you see?
That's not what the movie. The movie's not like that at all.
Yeah, right.
You're denying its grayscale.
The movie benefits not at all from being in black and white. In fact, like at least once I was like, she's got flowers on her wallpaper. I wonder what color those are in real life, you know? So
or they go on about the emerald in the ring. It's like, it's black. Okay.
Right. It's the most beautiful gem in the world. Black. Yeah. Also, like she's like, oh, I'm gonna paint it like blue and yellow. So, okay, so it's not blue and yellow now. So, like, what are we doing? White with pink flowers, like, you know, yeah. I was like, I've seen.
Well, I'm glad the movie's not being completely dismissed out of hand. I was worried that you guys really wouldn't like it, but I really think Shadow of a Doubt is a pretty good candidate for perfect movie.
No,
it's.
I think Ben's got to build his case because I think if we come in at it from our angle, like it doesn't sound like you sold anybody even after we've watched it, right?
So, really,
Andreas, I don't want to speak for you, but the director and I seem vocal.
I mean, it's hard, right? Is it a perfect movie today? Like the same way when I watched Goodfellas was an older movie, but not nearly as old, is still a perfect movie? I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think it's a perfect movie still. It is, I would say, especially if you look at it for its time, I can see how it was probably very fundamental for a lot of movies for the future.
Sure.
Mm.
And it wasn't a bad movie. I was less bored than I thought I would be.
I agree with that.
Okay, I mean, fair enough.
Maybe than I thought I would be, but I definitely hit a lull where I was like, what am I doing? Anyway. Okay. So, Ben, give us your perspective. That's what I want. Like, well, I don't want to pick on you for it or anything. I want you to build your essay. You know, why was this the movie you picked for perfect?
Come on, English teacher. You can do this.
Okay, for first thing, I was trying to think of a movie that is not dated in any way that I can find. And despite, of course, it being set in its time period, right? It's set in the 1940s because it was filmed in the 1940s. What are you going to do? Right. I thought that, so they're going to have the old-timey telephone because that's literally just what a telephone was, right?
Right.
Or maybe it was old-timey
traffic.
Yeah, maybe it was old-timey even then. And I think that's kind of what it was going for, though. So that element didn't matter as much. It's, the Santa Rosa would be the boonies. And I was also trying to, because another thing is just cinematography for some of these older movies is very, very dated. Like they're basically just stage plays with a camera set up.
Right.
And or sometimes it'll be close-ups, sometimes it'll be wide shots. This one did not have that at all. A lot of perspective work. And it felt like a very, it's still kind of in the classic style, but still a very modern movie. It's not like even Singing in the Rain 10, 15 years later will have pretty static shots for dance sequences and other things. Right. So for some of the big set pieces, right? And this one had a lot of close-ups, and it also had a lot of irony. You had the whole Americana everyone's a happy family dynamic is completely subverted throughout. Every line where the mom is talking about how happy the family is and how wonderful everything is takes a completely different cast when you learn throughout the movie just how twisted her younger brother became. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think that is kind of the point of the movie.
Oh yeah.
Right? But yeah, I agree with everything you said so far. I think also the how do you say the acting in it was, I would say, for 1940s movie. I mean, I'll say most modern movies, they have a lot better acting now. But
so?
At least the guy who played Charlie, both Charlies, actually, but they were really good.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of other things were, I felt like it was a little wooden and there was like, I kind of like the little sister, but a thing that annoyed me is, like, for example, so she's on the phone. She literally gives the person no time to reply, and just carries on a one-sided conversation. Though she talks like she's gotten a reply, but there was not time to get a reply.
Sure.
So I take it you haven't spoken with a lot of children, because she was very spot on. Like, I looked to my left and I looked to my right and I didn't see a pencil, so you're just gonna have to call back. So I was like, holy shit, is that my 5-year-old?
Pencil.
That part was fine. It was more the fact that she answered a reply, but clearly there wasn't time to get a reply, right?
Sure. Children's acting is going to be very rough. I will definitely get it. But I was actually watching.
It's not necessarily untrue to it. Like it was kind of funny too. Sorry, because like along a similar vein, like when Uncle Charlie meets the boss's friend, I can't remember his name. Right, they've got their whole true crime thing going on. But he was like, which is great. But what was funny to me is like he was like, it's a pleasure to meet you, and he's like, fine, thank you, and I'm like, holy shit, was that like amazing acting or what? Because like that was complete disconnect from like programmed response to programmed, pleasantries. And it was just so like, it pulled me out enough that was like, it wasn't a critique. I was like, that was amazing actually, And so it's funny because like in a lot of ways you got like the normal stuff, but I felt like some of the female cast was like melodramatic. And I think that's part of the time. Like that's part of the style, right? Like that's not necessarily like a criticism of the movie. Like it's not something I enjoy, but like young Charlie, she absolutely has like doe eyes and just like horror, and you're supposed to experience a lot of the emotions through her. But as far as acting go, like most of the background guys, like they could have just been off the street. I mean, some of them were, but they were just people, being filmed.
I guess I was thinking of this movie because I was trying to think of a movie where, if you could change anything about it, would it even really improve the movie? And I think the child acting angle, where like, I guess that the younger daughter, Charlie's younger sister, is a bit child actor-y, right? And kind of a pre-Spielberg child actor kind of issue, but I don't think that would improve the action of the movie, because the action of the movie is really between the two Charlies, right? And there's this weird kind of quasi-psychic thing going on where this is just uneasy psychological.
Are we supposed to think she does she have like supernatural powers, kinda, or is this just a almost a lazy plot device, just like to move the plot along?
I think it's based on, how, I guess the example you think of today is when you have twins and or very close friends will finish each other's sentences, or a twin dies and the other one has a little, feels something in the force. You hear stuff like that. I think it's trying to play on the family dynamic.
Right.
She even says that we're so close, we understand each other. And then when she actually does begin to understand her family member, then that's completely, everything that should be comfortable turns into like nails on her skin, right? So
also, it's just me. Was there in terms of their relationship, especially at the start, the way these doe eyes and the way they touch each other, there was almost a sexual undertone to it, which I thought was a little weird.
That's possible. honestly, there are a lot of movies where I'd say that's absolutely ridiculous. They would do that in this time, but it's Alfred Hitchcock. He's kind of a weirdo. He's kind of
not just that, but I think it might be some of your early clues, right? Like especially like unless you get clued in earlier, like your first real sign is when he grabs her over the newspaper, right? And so then you're like, wait a minute, something is actually off here. And so like it's going retrospective, you can see like, yeah, that dude's actually a creep. You can actually see the psychotic level of manipulation and the emotions play out where there are times where he's just like he's him and he's cold and he's just like whatever, and then there are times where he's like, oh, I was just fooling, which is a manipulation to get you to like lower your guard and forgive him in a way without him actually even have to apologize, because that's what he does when he grabs her hands. He even tries it at the diner not diner, they were at a bar, right? Like way later.
Great scene, by the way.
He's still trying to manipulate her. And it's like she's all clued in. She's not just going to roll over for this, and she doesn't. But
as I think I actually was, when I was rewatching it last night, I realized there's so much in the first half hour, really, that you guys probably just found completely boring because at that time you didn't understand what was going on, maybe. I think on rewatch, this is a movie that definitely benefits from rewatching. Not that I'm not going to twist your arm to get you to do that, but there's definitely that creepy dynamic, and I love it. It gives it a whole nother level of meaning to everything going on. And she has that early speech, right, about how boring it is. Nothing ever happens here,
right?
There's definitely this.
But Uncle Charlie will spice things up, and it's just thick.
Gets a little too spicy.
Right.
For her. There's definitely this kind of like this whole sense of Rose, like this very idyllic place. Everybody knows everybody's name, and how she's so, I would say, almost disillusioned and bored with this perfect life. So the interesting uncle, he will spice things up. And then she really starts to learn that life is not all like roses and like and as perfect as she kind of thinks it is, and how boring it is, and that there is a lot of like, even just that bar scene we talked about, how even in this perfect little town you get into this like seedy kind of, and like the waitress was very almost like had the life sapped out of her. She was like which I think was definitely on purpose, right?
Well, it was playing to his character, right? Because he's looking at Charlie the entire time, because he's already gone on multiple rants about how women are just after jewelry and they're just after your money, and they're vapid and there's nothing inside other than that, no substance. And so here comes the waitress who works at a bar in the middle of the night, as late as 10 p.m. the horror. But yeah, so she's there, right? And she immediately picks up the jewelry without talking to or asking anybody. She immediately starts fawning over it and practically proposes to him on the spot. And he's just staring at Charlie like, I've been telling you, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
Every girl is the same, So.
That's a level of betrayal I didn't, that. And then when she comes down the staircase, it's not just her cluing him in. He'll take it as a betrayal. Oh, and now you're definitely just one of them, aren't you? Taking my jewelry, right? That's all you want. And this kind of crazy.
I didn't think about it there. I thought it was just like a violation of privacy. And
I saw it as kind of like a warning, like get out.
Right.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think that's how I take it. That's how I take it when I first saw it. But this last time when Justin just said that, I wonder if,
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So I think to kind of address the perfect, right, and that sort of thing, I think I can agree with you as far as I would say I'm not sure that the story would be improved by bringing it into a modern era, recasting, that sort of thing. But I can't agree that the movie wouldn't be improved, right? And as much as anything, like it's a cultural thing, right? There, like my notes last for all of 5 minutes in, where it's like, here's the minute and a half worth of dancing, which does actually become plot relevant. However, it's a minute and a half of the credits are up front because that's the style at the time. When the little girl goes and answers the phone, we've got 3 minutes of ringing because we don't have a voice machine, because that's the style of the time. So it's like it does kind of get penalized by the time period and a few things. And it's fucking an hour and 47 minutes, my dude. Like, there are a lot of action movies people can't sit through that long.
It's a slow burn. It's definitely a slow burn. Yeah. And I think the tension, the ratcheting up of tension, is what really pays off a slow burn kind of movie. But if you're not getting the tension from that first scene where Uncle Charlie, because that's why he starts the movie, right? If you're not getting that tension there before it switches to Santa Rosa, then you're not going to you're not going to feel anything. It's just gonna be okay. People are walking across the stage, and I'm just eating my popcorn. Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were two parts that elicited like emotional responses, especially on behalf of younger Charlie, at least for me. Right. One of them I can't quite remember, was like he grabs her and like wrestles her into a room or something like that, or something along those lines. I might be conflating two different scenes, but obviously like the climax of the movie is the other one, where it's like, holy shit, like I'm pretty sure like he doesn't make it in this scene, but they really sold it up where it was like, I'm actually not sure how she's getting out of this,
I think when they were on the train, I'm like, okay, so one of them is gonna die, or is both of them gonna die? Is what I was thinking. And I thought it would be a very actually, if he killed her. I mean, either way, I think all three endings kind of would have been kind of good in their own way.
Sure.
In that way, like they all would kind of made sense. And it was. I mean, it was. I didn't know. Like I said, I saw one of the three things happening. Not exactly how, but like on this train, one person's gonna die, or they're both gonna die.
Right.
So but I couldn't figure out who. So it was like I felt tension in that ending scene.
If you think about it through the time period, though, like either because of the style of the time or even the censors, like I can't imagine they would have let him show a girl getting killed by a train at that time period. So if you take that into account, like unless they cut to, a different scene, like you all but see Charlie get run over. Spoilers for a movie from the 1940s that you should probably go watch. But, like you all but see the impact basically, and the train continues on. You're like, yeah, that's where his torso would have been. And that's, I'm sitting there the whole time.
Right. I don't think that would have been improved by modern special effects instead of clearly rear screen projection, train coming at you. It's not that who can believe that, but But I think the great thing is she survives, but it's the single most twisted ending possible because he gets his state funeral in Santa Rosa. He's a hero to the town.
Well, what's interesting is like I think Hitchcock or somebody like went on record as saying that like at the end, like even though she's with the detective and everything like that, she's still pining for him, which I did not really feel from the movie, but I'm like, that's a twisted ending. Like she spent this whole time trying to chase him out and get rid of him, and then they're like, well, she really still just like has this deep love for him, and I'm like, fuck that noise. Like you escaped a serial killer who almost killed you, like so.
Yeah, that's one of the things that was with the detective. It's how like, okay, we got like, apparently they got it down to two people. There's one of these two. I don't know how they got there. That's never explained, but they know there's one of these two guys.
It was both.
Maybe they were both guilty of something. Because one guy apparently runs into an airplane motor thing and gets chopped up.
Right.
And apparently that absolves Uncle Charlie of all manner, like all guilt. Like they don't know, they no longer suspect him. The other guy died, it was him.
It was the picture. The picture that they had secretly stolen, and then they're showing all of the other people, all the witnesses. No, that's not the guy. Therefore, they decided that it was innocent.
Yeah, I mean it's a combination of factors, right? So you got two serial killers operating out of the Northeast. It's not at all hard, especially if they've got like a similar MO or calling card to assume that it's one, right? Charlie moves all the way out west, but someone somehow got him as a witness. And basically they were like, yeah, this is what our guy looks like, right? But they actually catch the killer in the act or whatever it is, and then he runs into a propeller. So there couldn't possibly be two serial killers, right? So, that eyewitness must have been mistaken or whatever, right? So you've got all of these little factors that kind of add up to that's good enough. And I mean, it plays to the title. All they need is a shadow of a doubt, right? The American justice system is we got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty, right?
Sure,
and at that point, he had
right?
enough. They caught a killer. They, all of this stuff. It checked all the boxes. They just didn't know there were two of them. And then she didn't, and she really should have just shown the detective the ring. It's like, yeah, I know this is happenstance, but for crying out loud, like, this is almost certainly that gal's ring, because that's what clued her in. It's like, and talking about rewatch stuff, the whole like, what waltz is this? And he's pretending he doesn't know to throw the family off the trail and everything like that. But, like he's pretty good at covering his tracks, at the end of the day. So.
I mean, I think he was a really great actor as well. Like, he really was really good. Like, especially I think for the time. I mean, actors today are, from what I've seen, they're better. There's a lot of things learned from those early days that people use to hone their craft. Yeah, there's just more experience to draw from. So I would say actors now are better.
Yeah, there's a couple thresholds in acting. There's method acting and Brando and everything like that, and that'll be movies that film acting starting about the late 50s, early 60s does take a pretty sharp turn. So that's true. I'll grant you that.
Again, I think it's style is more than acting, right? It's really hard to tell if you're a good actor or not because melodrama is the flavor of the day, right? Like, if you look at the men, right? Like, again, they are so natural as to be not acting in a lot of scenes, right? But it's like only when you get to the dramatic stuff with Uncle and younger Charlie, you really start getting the hamming up to like elicit those emotions. And that's where I'm using just melodrama, right? Like, that's what's going on. Mom is a little over the top, especially when Uncle Charlie is like leaving. But like, look at the bank president, look at her dad, look at her dad's friend. Like, those dudes are just shooting the shit about true crime, like there's no acting there. Like, maybe his friend got a little over the top when it was like, oh my God, somebody's like dying in the garage or something like that. But, like, other than that, like, everybody else, I felt like they were just naturally in their part. And it's just, I feel like it's more a stylistic choice than, like a black mark against the acting, like the actor or actress's skills, right?
Sure.
Especially because you have Charlie flipping between, murderous psychopath and, it's fine. We're friends. We've always been friends. I just tried to kill you 30 seconds ago, but we're smiling. So it's okay, right? So like, it's just like,
I actually think he does that pretty well. Like this like psychopath who kind of can't keep it in. He does that pretty well. And he's very good. I don't know what Ben. Do you know what his background is? Was he more of a stage actor before?
I don't know. I know him from two other movies. I'll actually look him. Joseph Cotton, right? Joseph.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he does. I think he was pretty good with, like, especially his like facial acting. He did pretty well. Like, you could tell, like you didn't have to have a line for like to be able to read and understand kind of like his mood, if you will, or like what he was like, the when he sees the ring, his facial expression there, right, stuff like that. Like, he did pretty, which I think from the very limited experience I have of movies of that era was not, it was not that common. People were not that good.
Yeah, it looks like he was a Broadway actor working mostly with Orson Welles, and one of his first big breaks was literally like the secondary lead in Citizen Kane.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that's been way too long since I.
That was within a couple years of him starting in film. So,
nice.
Never seen it, but I know it's fundamental.
Yeah. That, I mean, shit. If we were going to do something from the same era, even I would put in for Citizen Kane. So it's going to have a lot of the same kinds of problems, but like the underlying story and point.
I think my goal was trying to get something you haven't heard of that's still manages to age really well because it's explicitly about the kind of old corny way of life with this kind of insidious menace running throughout. Right. And so and once you get into noir and other things, there's a lot of stuff like this that manages to spend a lot of time in kind of the dark underbelly of society. The trouble is, most noir is just about that, and there's not really the contrast between what might be natural to the viewer at the time, and so it doesn't really play off corniness. And sometimes some noir stuff can seem corny because it's just their version of what's dark, rather than that kind of blend of what seems corny to us and what is just menacing.
Now when I'm sitting here thinking about it, I think, a movie that I really like, not a perfect movie, but a movie I really like, that I think probably, like, at least must have taken some inspiration or some, like, had some fundamentals from this very old movie, a movie called Disturbia.
Oh yeah. That's a surprisingly well put together movie for what it. I wouldn't have thought that would be a good movie. That turned out. Even my dad liked it. He's more of a film snob than I am.
Oh wow!
Whoa!
Hey! What are you trying to say?
Well, I'm just like, well, how do we take your natural qualities and make it worse? He's like, Metropolis was the greatest movie of all time. Nosferatu. Yeah, those are where we're at. Which, speaking of, like, so that was one of the things that I got out of the trivia that helped, me appreciate and understand the movie much more, is that there's actually like a decent analysis about how this is more of a vampire story in a way, right? Like, he's clearly not, but there are a lot of parallels between that, like those kinds of stories, going for the neck, grabbing her arms, those, like some of those things. The fact that he's weak and practically an invalid up until he meets up with the family and stuff like that, and then he's rejuvenated, just by being there. Some of those things. Yeah. I was like, unfortunately, I definitely have my wheelhouse, right, where it's like some of these themes are what excites my gray matter, and so seeing those kinds of things, because it's like I did go watch Nosferatu. Like, if you want to go watch a really cool black and white movie and that sort of thing, like, it's got its problems and whatever, but as far as being a Dracula adaptation, it's pretty good. But yeah, so getting some of those themes to carry over to, a serial killer, that, and it's largely based off of, a real life person again as well, where it's like there was another serial killer at the time, like in a near contemporary time, that had a similar kind of story, so.
Sure, in the same way the Unabomber is kind of contemporary to us. So it's within 10, 20 years. Well, not Unabomber, but you know what I mean. Who was that guy with the anthrax?
Oh, geez, I don't even remember. So, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it was some guy from the 20s. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the director, you're pretty quiet. I take it you were very much not hot on this film.
So I did enjoy it a lot more than I thought I would. The things that I would say prevent it from being a perfect movie are the editing, because
really?
Yeah, there was like 3 or 4 scenes where they just like ended mid-conversation or started mid-conversation with like not the right kind of build up to it, and it's just like, what the fuck are you doing?
That one scene where she's like, "No, I know you're a detective, see?" or whatever.
Yeah, I know. Like I didn't know. Like, so they're walking around downtown, and then they're mid-fight with no build up, and then like he makes references to them like having done more things. It's like, did I miss that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But like her to go from he's just a person asking questions to you're a detective. What are you doing? And then like a couple times later, it just felt like when they were talking in like the living room or something, and like end mid conversation. Like there should have been a little bit more for that, and then a scene transition, and then it would have been better.
I guess I kind of took that as just being set up. She's smart. She's not going to be fooled by anybody.
Why did she start out angry about it? I mean, just like there was no explanation for why she was at that emotional state in that fight with just opening cold on it.
Very sudden love that you develop as well.
Yeah, the detective.
We hung out for an evening. I must marry you, but that may just be the style at the time.
Right, that might be.
I mean, you saw the Onion on.
There's a lot of movies with romantic subplots, and I would say the romantic subplot is not the strongest element of the movie, but it does give.
I didn't think the romantic subplot wasn't a bad thing. It's just there was not much about the movie that I disliked. I felt that there was a lot of promises for more fucked up elements that they kind of didn't take. Sure. And then the editing was just very jarring at a few points, and so that's the big mark against it. But I kept expecting for things to get even weirder. I always thought it was weird that like she wasn't asking the detective what is he accused of doing, so she had to go to the library and everything. It's like, but you could ask, like, is he cheating on his taxes or is he a murderer? Those are huge, big differences.
Well, so if you're keeping score at home, you know where the director's morality falls, on the lawfulness scale. Oh, my brother, he's a tax evader, but that's fine. He can still come to the family barbecue. So
right, yeah, that's like he's not hurting individuals. He's probably has like problems with philosophy or something, but just like that's completely different from strangling widows and stealing all of their money. And then when they revealed that
was just lying there at that point, so
it was just pocket change to him. Yeah. Right. But then there was that widow that they introduced that she was so taken with him. It's like, okay, is he going to go move on her and like, do something fucked up to her? And he didn't.
She was.
Well, but the answer to that, the answer to that is yes, though, because she was on the same train as him.
That is true. I guess I just expected more of like a promise of seeing that happen.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, it's probably the classic fuck up too, right? So his whole ruse, like if you think about his evil plan at the end, is I'm going to throw Charlie from the train, and then somehow I'm still going to go make it with the widow and then kill her.
Yeah,
like really, 2 on the train? Like you're busted anyway, dude. So
when he kept trying to kill her, I was like, are you not that smart? Why are you drawing more attention to this?
Right. His other attempts were a lot better. Than I would say than that one.
Yeah, I mean the car thing. I didn't understand that you could take the ignition key out of old cars and then leave it turned on. Okay, that was something at the time I didn't know, but like that could have been an accident. That was pretty decent as an attempt to kill her, but the train would have just drawn way too much attention to him.
Right.
I did like. There's a surprising amount of setup for this movie because both of those murder attempts were absolutely set up. Right. There's a comment at the very beginning of the movie. The mom is like, out of it. Oh, those back stairs are so steep.
Right.
So and then of course there's the romantic interlude in the garage. It gets stuck and just kind of played for nothing. But it's totally set up.
Oh, like that kind of foreshadowing.
And she's saved only because they've set up that the dad's friend is just always kind of sneaking around, around. He's just always around. At inconvenient times.
But I loved his friend. Like that weird friend talking about murder methods. He was definitely my favorite character.
He's definitely
the whole thing. He was so weird. But I also felt that it was kind of like a promise of like, is he going to actually do something, maybe to Uncle Charlie and get away with it because the guy wouldn't leave? I expected that kind of like they were going to save him by being like bad themselves.
And it's funny too because it's been 80 years, right? And true crime people are exactly the same. Because if you're outside the bubble, they are some fucked up dudes. But if you're inside the truth, he's not going to murder anybody. If anybody, he's going to kill your dad, and that's fine. You know, like just that whole conversation.
We're not talking about murdering.
He's not a sicko. You just don't understand. Like he is plotting to murder you and how to get away with it. And so like if anybody's going to uncover everything that's going on, right? If anybody's observing for those sneaky little bastards, it's going to be these two, except Dad's still kind of phoning it in, right? But that was part of what was great about it, that, and then getting called out and just be like, no, yeah.
So after like we see 3 or 4 times of the friends, like I like, did you taste anything funny in the coffee? Because I poisoned it with soda or whatever. And then he goes up, is like, would you eat this mushroom? He's like, yeah, sure. Why would you do this? He's established he's trying to poison you.
You're right.
I eat them on my steaks when they're not good enough.
Yeah.
Steaks down, you eat mushrooms.
Oh man. Oh, so wonderful. Well, that's honestly that interaction between the characters I remembered as being more significant, and that's one of the reasons I chose the movie because I figured this twisted dynamic of the true crime enthusiasts. Well, there's a literal murder under the roof.
Exactly. So I just expected them to like emerge like more and like do more. Like
promise all their suspicious. Things. I feel like we're setting up here that they are into this and they're going to see some of this stuff, but nope.
just oblivious, and that's part of the wonderful horror of the movies, that small town, it feels so safe, and they're so oblivious to what's really going on. It's almost an indictment of that whole, idyllic Santa Rosa style, whatever life.
It could be, and I think we're missing the plot point too, right? So like obviously, like it kind of sets itself up for they crack the case and they do whatever, but their actual huge plot thing, like outside of saving her, which was also hugely significant, they're the ones that let slip that the killer was caught, because they're checking the news and all this other stuff. So they're the ones that are like what was it? The merry widower,
the merry widow killer. Yeah,
yeah.
He gets, and they're so excited.
And then Charlie
he ran into a propeller.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
but you don't need to see it like
point,
Indiana Jones Last Crusade or whatever. You just hear about it. They're just so excited. Whoa.
Right. But you also see like Charlie going from like suspicious and like keeping his eye on young Charlie to being like, I'm in the clear, and he starts doing a jig practically.
And I love that scene where he's like walking around, and then he kind of realizes she's the only one who knows.
Right. And yeah, because he's like, oh shit, that didn't work. She's still suspicious of me. So, but yeah.
Because he all but admits it in that bar, right? He doesn't even pretend anymore at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. He all but admitted it when it's like nobody at all is going to draw a conclusion from the fucking newspaper that the Merry Widow and Uncle Charlie are the same thing.
Right.
But he's like, I got to steal the page. I got to blame it on the kids. I've got to cut it out of the newspaper after I've thrown it away. Right. Like, you practically put your finger in the trap at that point, my dude.
To that point, I thought maybe they had a picture of him in the newspaper. No. Then he was so paranoid about never having his photo taken, which is hilarious at the time. But if it was just this thing, all he had to do was act like it doesn't matter, like he never heard of it or whatever. But it's drawing attention to it. And you don't have many brain cells, do you?
Yeah, it's a psychosis. It's definitely the psychosis on that one.
Right.
The mom is so great in this movie because she's so constantly, because only at the very end she's just starting to get, this is odd.
Yeah,
right.
There's something weird going on. But she just so blithely talks about, and then you had your accident. We ran into a like a trolley car, I guess, and then it's like you did so much resting that you just couldn't be stopped. You got in all sorts of mischief after that. And then later she mentions, and then when you ran away, I thought I'd never see you again. And
right.
She's just it's just her life. So the backstory of her crazy brother and how he became to be is very subtle. Whereas in like even later movies like Psycho, there's that. Have you ever seen Psycho?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's that
like
dreadful
the '60s version. I don't think.
Oh, the '60s one. Okay. Yeah, there's this dreadful scene at the end that explains how the killer came to be, like the killer was, and it was just. I don't think it just kills the momentum out of the movie. But this is just kind of subtly interwoven.
You should hear Benjamin's father talk about that
scene. Nice.
Fair enough.
Well, it's funny too because like even just this morning, it wasn't directly related to this, but what you just said kind of triggered. Like there seems to be a trend right now. Oh yeah, because we were talking about Cruella, and then we were talking about like Army of the Dead because they're two brand new movies, and it's like I don't know what the point in trying to make monsters sympathetic is, right? Like it's one thing if it's like you're misunderstood and there's a reason, or like there's 100 ways to tell this story, right?
Elephant Man or something.
Yeah, or something, right? But the gal who grew up a fashion designer and decided I'm just going to murder 100 puppies, there is not a sympathetic story that I'm going to be like, oh, you're right because of that thing, because of her childhood. Like in this serial killer's case, like you can kind of feel for him because it's a limitation of medical science and things like that, where it's like very possibly because of his accident, he got brain damage that sent him down this path, right? That's something, but he's still a fucking monster.
Oh yeah.
He's great. So yeah, like trying to make some of those things sympathetic. It's like, okay, yes, but there is a line. Like now that I'm talking about it, like getting my steam. Another great example is Medea, right? The very classic play. so Medea is a sympathetic character up until she tries to fucking murder everybody, including the kids. Right?
Oh,
right? Like everybody's
Medea.
like, but she was so wronged. I'm like, yes, she was wronged, but that does not make her response appropriate. Like I tried to kill you with a crown that turns into poison and then murder all the children. Like, you have crossed the line. You are now, that regardless of your tragic backstory, that is not going to save you.
Never heard of this play.
No, it's an old one. Like, I've heard of it and I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
American literature. So
Greek literature.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I was in that class, is what I'm saying. So, yeah, it's not like I went and read that for happy fun time. I made it work. I made it enjoyable. It's pretty good compared to some of the stuff I've been forced to read, but. But that was kind of the thing. It was like, oh, but those men did her wrong. Yes, they did do her wrong, but a murder spree is not the appropriate response.
Two wrongs don't make it right.
Well, but the level too, right? Like, they cheated on her and went and married the young hotness. A tale is old of time. Key his car, sink his boat, something. Not murder his children and ruin his entire dynasty. Like, those are different
proportions.
So.
Well, I will say we talked basically 35, 40 minutes about this old movie that you guys thought would be completely boring, but it's only partially boring, sometimes mostly boring, I guess. I don't know. I'm not quite. But I think that's great. Considering how just completely down everyone was on it, I think I'm going to mark this as a moderate success.
I mean, it was less boring than I thought it would be, definitely. But then I was expecting more and more fucked upness, and then it was just not happening. So I also came away a little disappointed. Like, there was a few.
That's parts, your modern take.
I think it's modern tastes even too.
I mean, maybe because I've seen all these things that did go more crazy and psychotic with all of it. But like, there's hints that I thought, like, is the detective character actually lying? Is he the real killer, and now he's setting up the other guy?
Oh,
because
I didn't actually think about that, sir.
Well, it's like when they were like talking, like the romance scene in the garage or something. It's like there's something weird there, and then he couldn't be contacted. So it's like, are they working together, or there's like something wrong going there? And no, apparently
did he murder him or something while off screen? Why can't you get a hold of him?
Exactly. I thought there's something feel like the promise there of something else, and then he's there at the funeral.
Yeah.
Okay.
He just had to be conveniently out of reach when she needed him. So,
Yeah, I think the she all alone playing to. I guess I'm a bit more fluent with movies at the time, so I kind of know more of the character archetypes and what to expect. So I suppose that with that background knowledge, I would understand how you came to that. That's a possible setup.
Yeah. Wasn't it like I said before? Like, I agree with Alexa. It's not as poor as I thought it would be. I would say I paused it a couple of times at the start, but once it got going, I would say I watched it through and it was okay. I mean, not as boring as I thought it was. A decent movie.
Okay.
I think
not a perfect movie.
All of you have been deceived. It was the buddy that was the real killer. He framed Charlie trying to throw her out of the train and everything. He's the real evil genius. It's also really hard to watch a movie in 2021 from the 1940s, like, especially when you're not like really into that. There's like the way the sound, for example, the music, like it was just like when it came in over things, it was overbearingly just coming in and stuff like that. Like it was just like really jarring.
The slow crawl of reading a newspaper.
Yes.
That music scene, I don't know. I thought that worked so great. But
there were some odd choices with the music.
Whenever there was music, it was loud and in your face.
In the beginning, when there's like trying to set up of something being not right, and there's a lot of like very like tense music that I just didn't feel it had earned yet. And then like later in the bar, which is when I was expecting more tense music, and it's just happy, jiggy, jazzy music in the background. It's like, that doesn't match. And it just felt a little odd.
That's because I think that's part of what that scene is selling, right? It's like he kept like cornering her in public, right? Which was another thing where it's like, okay, so he's not going to kill her now because he's in public, but at the same time, you have these menacing scenes with these people just in the background, as like passive witnesses. And that was kind of the bar scene again. It's like, he's not going to be able to get away with much, even though it's in a bar, no one can really hear the conversation, whatever. But it's not like he can hurt her, like, and whatever. But yeah, so you've got them carrying on being the happy small town while, the devils come to Santa Rosa or whatever the hell.
The contrast intended there, I did like. It just also felt like maybe change it a little bit more tense. Like you overused it in the beginning, but now you're underusing it later.
I think as a more modern viewer, like my older movies I usually have watched before this, the oldest one I might have watched might be Godfather 1. I think.
When did that come out?
That's the oldest movie you've ever seen?
Maybe.
Wow.
Have you seen like Wizard of Oz or anything like that?
Not fully. I think it was on TV once, but I didn't finish it.
Ben, we got some work to do. I'll even join you on this crusade. So.
But, maybe this is like the way I'm used to, music and sounds being used in movies, and how in this, because it's an older movie, it's basically just an orchestra playing X music, or I don't know, it just felt jarring. Like I could almost picture the orchestra standing to the side playing their music. Which again, it's not really at fault of the movie, but I think I was just thinking about it. I think that kind of also took me out a little bit of those scenes. But again, I mean, I would say I was expecting to come in here and just rip it a new one, and it wasn't.
Decent. At least it was decent. Look, if it can get folks who haven't seen a movie older than Godfather 1 say it's decent. Oh,
right.
I'll take it.
I mean, you push that threshold back a couple decades. So.
Well, I think this was kind of this is like a special time. I think there are even more. There are more great movies from before the 1980s that I think y'all would appreciate. But I thought I was trying to try
several
some
in the 70s we can name, like Godfather or Star Wars or Alien. Like 70s still had decent movies that we are still familiar in talking about. 60s gets a little bit harder to remember.
It's a little too new for Benjamin, but
Oh, no. Hey, stop that! I resemble that comment. No,
really, it's your dad's fault. I can just imagine your dad when you have to watch movies. He's like, okay, let me just get the movie reel out, and he gets an actual old-time projector out. It's like, let me hook it up.
Oh, that is so great! I wish.
Off the stove.
Hey, yes. Actually, yes. So stop it.
Right.
We had a popcorn popper.
You're like, holy shit, my childhood.
We actually had a literal popcorn popper, like a little device that sits on your counter. You put popcorn kernels into it.
I've got one now. I'm with you.
Okay,
but those are way better than cooking it on the stove where it comes out 50% burnt.
Most people just know the microwave popcorn or the big old.
Air popper is the way to go if you like popcorn, by the way. If you're not sure, air pop it. It's great. I mean, if you want to really be extravagant, you can go for the oil-based stuff that you can buy and whatever. But
to add to that little tangent, I actually disagree because my roommate has an air popper. We've used it, and the texture of the popcorns feels weird. So we've tried on the stove, the air popper, and microwave, and I said stove and microwave is fine. The air popper, it has a weird, more firm texture than the other popcorns that I don't appreciate.
Maybe try different kernels. There's lots of different kinds of kernels you can get apparently too. So
it was all the same.
For Christmas, there was like an 8-pack or whatever. It's like, holy shit, all this different kind of corn.
I mean, yeah, sure, that might be the case. This kernel was the same on the stove and in the air popper, but
sure,
it might be better for a stove. I don't know, than for an air popper.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. So
yeah. Anyway, I have nothing more to add to A Shadow of Doubt. It's really.
So what's our next movie? Who gets to pick?
It's a good question.
Jacob hasn't picked, but he's not here.
He did pick one.
He did?
It was Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I feel that's like picking the Princess Bride, though. That's kind of a consensus pick.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
I agree. I enjoyed that movie too.
Yeah, that's why I haven't been too vocal on the picks, right? Is because like so far everybody's been like, "Hey, some of your favorite movies." So,
but the directors pick 2, and you pick 1, right, Justin?
I don't know that I've explicitly picked yet, but like I said, it's hard to tell because my picks have been picked anyway.
Did you pick something, Andres?
Maybe we just say it's Justin's turn.
Did you pick something, Andres?
Yeah, Goodfellas.
Oh yeah. Okay.
One of my submissions and my pick.
That travesty.
Wait, what?
Why is my Trello not working? Anyway, I guess we'll have to look at the list. So
we have lots of things on the list, but like we've talked about some things recently, so maybe out of our recent conversations, like Zorro keeps coming up. I'm not sure if that's actually on the list.
I like the movie. I'm not sure it's perfect though.
It's not perfect. We're talking about the Antonio Banderas one.
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed the movie. I remember enjoying the movie. A perfect movie? I think not.
Let's see.
But I mean, it's fair enough.
Hot Fuzz, Die Hard, Inception, My Fair Lady.
Hey,
yeah,
you know who wrote that one in.
We got to come into the modern era a little bit.
Yeah, Constantine.
I don't want to double dip.
The Martian. I put The Martian in. That's fairly recent.
Constantine.
That's not perfect.
So,
I think it was Amber's suggestion. Addams Family, Master and Commander, Fifth Element, Emperor's New Groove, The Mist,
Fifth Element, Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah.
I think I was thinking of suggesting Emperor's New Groove.
Would get us far from this anyway.
Stargate.
But
it's on the list somewhere.
Stargate. I don't know. Stargate?
That's too new. There's colors in that movie.
Oh, quiet you. Too new. No. It's just
John
too
Wick,
Stargate.
Aliens.
Those are good movies.
Yeah, they're all good movies.
Like the second one, right? Aliens.
Yeah, it was what you put on. But I think Alien deserves to be up there too.
Yeah. I mean, just if I was going to pick one, for sure. So like there's history with that too, though. Like I've tried to introduce people to Alien and Aliens so many times and be like, well, if you're going to watch the second one, you got to watch the first one. Nobody sits through 2 movies like that. So, I'm like, from now on, we're watching Aliens because I prefer the action, the campy, the humor and stuff, and you still get plenty of horror along the way. And then if you're interested, we can go watch a slower burn with, Alien and that sort of
thing. Or Shadow of a Doubt or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really good point. If you brought Shadow of a Doubt into the modern era and put a xenomorph right in the middle of the town, like it would be perfect,
Or you had that line from Blade, right?
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill. Yeah, that would have.
No, yeah.
I think the cop, I think the street cop would have been like, Charlie, some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill. Now EG has been represented. Thank you for bringing that up. So,
yeah, of course, anytime. Yeah.
So, I mean, Stargate seemed like it had the least amount of dissent. I was thinking we should do sci-fi to get us away from this. I mean, I'm not opposed to Emperor's New Groove, but
who is?
I say this as a massive Stargate fan, more so the TV shows than the movie. But I think
that's where you fail.
I think Inception is a better sci-fi movie.
I could agree with that too, probably.
Inception's a better sci-fi movie than what?
Stargate.
I mean, I like both of them, but Stargate has its own flavor. Inception, I think, just like it was executed very, very well. So it gets more points that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm twitching because it's like, okay, so far the only thing that they have in common is that they're science fiction.
Yeah.
But as we've discussed with Ben, that is not necessarily an apples to apples comparison. Like,
no, it's not.
You can't compare Ironclad to Knight's Tale because they've both got
Do we
suits
have
of
to
armor
have that
and jousting.
No, that would be as I said before. That's the wrong comparison. You compare a Knight's Tale to
you can't compare a Knight's Tale to
or
the Replacements because they're both
Friday Night Lights.
Movies.
It's Friday Night Lights. Knight's Tale is Friday Night Lights. It's not Ironclad or whatever. I don't even know that. It's not
so just because they share like the umbrella genre doesn't make them like Well, Aliens really a better movie. Aliens really a better movie than Star Trek: The Motion Picture because they're both science fiction.
I think Aliens is a great choice because Alien and Aliens and that whole franchise illustrates the importance of a director and the importance of genre, because otherwise they're basically the same movie. It's basically the same concept with a different director and a different genre. Alien is a horror movie. Aliens is an action movie. Alien is Ridley Scott. Aliens is James Cameron. And I think that kind of trend kind of continues, at least with the first couple of films. And then Ridley Scott comes back. I don't know. But that's I think that's Red Letter Media's take, and I totally endorse it.
Seems like a fair take.
Should Terminator be on this movie? Or this list?
Terminator or Terminator 2?
Terminator 2 should be.
I haven't seen Terminator in a long time.
Terminator
and
Salvation.
I've only seen T2 once, and it was like, I don't want to count how many years ago.
What?
I have seen it. It's just been once a long time ago.
Of all the childhood-defining movies, you've only seen that one once?
I think we didn't own it. Like, I owned Terminator, but I had to rent T2. It's like, so. Yeah,
T2 and Aliens were like the reason why I know director's cuts exist, because like when you finally got that coveted like golden videotape or laser disc or whatever had the actual director's cut on it, it's like you can't watch the theatrical cut anymore. It's like you have to know these missing plot elements. Like,
I was a very different generation of director's cuts. My generation of director's cuts was like South Park and.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say there's a 4-hour cut of Shadow of a Doubt out there.
They quiet you.
Oh, no. Like, they literally watch Charlie sleep for an hour and a half because it builds the drama. Like,
actually, you just reminded me of a dumb part of this movie that what is supposed to be going on. When he was on the train and everyone was commenting he sounds so sick and it's not good. And then there was like a guy with like a complete full house or whatever it is in the poker hand. Like, he has the whole case of space. Like, what the fuck was that supposed to be about? It's there, and then
that's Alfred Hitchcock.
That was an Alfred Hitchcock cameo. It was a thing he did. He did cameos in all his movies, and by the end of his career, he put all of his cameos at the beginning of the movies because people would be distracted trying to find him. But he was the guy holding all those.
Why was he holding such a good hand? Why? Like, that's.
I think. And
then it zoomed in on it. Like, you can't just like catch it in a glance or something. Like, no, here's the point. This guy's gonna win.
I think the joke was there's a line at the same time. Oh, you don't look so well either. And either like the doctor got a peek of his opponent's hand or something.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the joke, I guess.
Oh, okay.
It was sort of just a quip.
Expected.
It's not a comedy.
Yeah.
It's just.
Well, yeah, but you're calling it a joke. Like, a joke's got to at least elicit a smile, or you've got to at least acknowledge the humor of the thing.
Yeah, like
that was more like that's a joke, as in funny, haha, or funny, interesting.
Like, either grok it or you don't, and that's all there is to it. Okay, just grok it or don't. Done. That's all you need.
So as a professional, terrible joke teller, I can tell you that if nobody gets your joke, what's the point? So,
well, if nobody gets your joke, you just laugh harder. That's the who's that guy? Who's that goat boy?
I tell jokes for myself, at least, So hopefully Alfred Hitchcock thought that shit was hilarious. So, because nobody else did.
Well, it's gonna bother him. Who's that guy with that terrible late night program? Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, that's a Jimmy Kimmel principle. Nobody gets your joke, you just laugh at it harder.
Yeah.
Or if everyone gets your joke, you just laugh at it harder. I think you just always laugh at your own joke.
There is definitely like a phenomenon, right, where you can elicit emotion by overacting that emotion, right? So melodrama, some cases, but yes, if you laugh at your lack of understanding or something like that, you can get people to laugh with you sometimes. But you can't just like show up in a room and start laughing, because then you're just insane. So see, got a smirk.
What?
Katie laugh.
My list.
Yeah, the list.
In the movies. And what are we doing next time?
Zorro out of the way. No, I mean, like I said, I'd vote for a sci-fi next, but like if anyone else has a good,
we have like 4 sci-fis we've talked about. Someone decide.
There's Fifth Element, Aliens. Was it Terminator?
Stargate Inception.
I mean, shit, I want Galaxy Quest right now, but
Galaxy Quest. That's a great movie.
Those, right?
Galaxy Quest?
Yeah.
It is on the list. But I don't remember why.
I don't.
I've never seen this.
Perfect.
That's a great movie. I don't have
it. Oh,
no.
Man. I've got so many things
have you seen Star Trek?
Yeah,
I've seen Star Trek.
Which Star Trek?
Well, I'm just saying.
I haven't seen Galaxy
Have you
Quest.
seen the Next Generation Star Trek?
I've seen some of it.
His crew. Yes. Then you'll have at least some background to watch Galaxy Quest. So
Galaxy Quest is a wonderful film, and I'm pretty sure
seeing some original series wouldn't hurt either because the main character is a little bit Shatnerized, but
I've seen some.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm a vote for that just because she hasn't seen it, because I think it'd be great to get an outsider perspective as well.
Streaming on Prime, brought to you not by.
There you go. So,
if Amazon gives us money, we'll plug it all day,
and certainly not say it twice for free.
Gotta get that Prime cash.
Right. Speaking of, no, I'm just kidding. Okay. Oh. Yeah, I'll watch that all day. So
I don't know what I'm signing up for.
A good time.
A good time. Yeah, that's a great way to put that. Yeah.
We never actually started the episode saying what movie we were watching, right? We just slipped in conversation.
Yeah.
Well, see, what it was is
Shadow of a Doubt is the name of the movie.
Shadow of a Doubt. If you also go back and rewatch it, Ben, it's a style thing, right? We're the kind of show that some point in the episode you've got to use the title as part of dialogue. That's how it comes across, right? So like when you're watching The Expanse and they talk about Leviathan's breath or whatever, and you're like, oh, that's the thing. That's the title of the episode. We're that show. So also, we didn't mention Dresden one time. So if you thought we were the Dresden Files, you were really confused.
And you talk about vampires. So you talk about vampires and you didn't even mention Dresden. That's amazing.
I know, right?
I'm so proud of you.
I brought up an even older movie.
Joseph Cotton, Totally White Coat.
Oh yeah, he's definitely an energy vampire at the very least. So yeah. He's what, Scavis?
Yeah.
Who is the murderer, right? So feeds on fear. Delicious.
Honestly, Joseph, I didn't realize Joseph Cotton had such a great career. Citizen Kane and The Third Man and this movie and Stalag 17 and was it Gaslight? Although technically, did you know the movie Gaslight never actually existed? There never actually was a film with Gaslight.
I was like, I recognized two of those, and then you said Gaslight, and if you're not familiar, you really should go try to find it. Good luck. Good one, Ben. That's funny.
Well, there actually was a movie called Gaslight. There were two.
Now you're explaining the joke.
Sorry.
Right. Yeah. So you can tell he's not a gaslighter.
I'm terrible.
Because they don't usually be like, you didn't catch it right then, but I lied. So that's not a thing that they do.
All right. So Galaxy Quest next time. We'll see how that goes.
It's going to be amazing.